your host of the Credit Connection. I'm here live with two wonderful gentlemen. We have on my left is Pierre Cardina. He is the president and CEO at Capital Credit Union. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we also have Philip Paul, who is the CEO at Contribute. Welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just take a second and let you all go, do a little deeper dive on your introductions of yourself and your organizations. Pierre, why don't you get it kicked off?
Sure. Been here at Capital Credit Union for about 10 years. We're in the Austin market, highly competitive, and we are looking to grow and have market share in being a part of the continued growth in the Austin market. So very challenging.
Yeah, definitely a up and coming city. Excuse me. And Philip, why don't you go ahead and do your intros?
Sarah, I get the privilege of leading Contribute. And our goal with Contribute is to power the fastest growing financial institutions. It's as simple as that. So we do that through software technology. We have a cloud-first digital account origination platform that's integrated with all the legacy systems. And then we also have some agentic AI that we use. But that's our goal, is to really power the fastest growing financial institutions.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm going to start off with you, Philip. It doesn't matter that crayons are smaller anymore. They're struggling to compete with the Chimes, the Daves, the PayPals of the world. So first, why is it so important for credit unions to get their technology in general, but also just especially account opening up to speed?
Sarah, you hit the nail on the head. Really, digital first banks have completely rewritten the rules, right? And traditional financial institutions are under attack. You look at some of the stats, traditional financial institutions spend anywhere from $400 to $700 to acquire a member. And the lifetime value might be, $3,000 to $5,000. But ABA had an interesting stat. 74% of them are ready to leave the bank at any time, leave the credit union at any time. So you can imagine that, right? You've spent so much time acquiring them and they're ready to leave. And so that's the big issue that traditional financial institutions, credit unions in particular, have, is how do I reduce the cost of member acquisition? How do I retain them and keep them engaged? And so that's why I think part of it is making it seamless, frictionless. You've got to be able to compete with the experiences that SoFi and MoneyLion and Chime provide. So I think that's why we think it's really, really important to have the same experience that those guys provide. You look at Chime; they've grown to 7 million members in such a short time. So you have to be able to compete, and that's why we think it's an important piece of that whole experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And now, Pierre, you've decided on Contribute for your account opening. But why was that strategically important for you to upgrade your digital account opening, specifically your credit?
Yeah, great question, Sarah. Here in Austin market, we're about a $220 million credit union, and we only have 3 branches. And consequently, the city continues to grow. People are moving into Austin, what they say, 120 families a day or some crazy number like that. Right. We're never going to be conveniently located for anyone at this point. And you've got a lot of large players in the Austin market. Everybody all over the country is moving, and you have branches all over the place. We don't have the pockets for that, Sarah. So we had to be really strategic in saying, how do we capture market share without a branch structure? The only way to do that is to find best of breed in making it a seamless process, fintech type of solution to open up new membership through digital channels. Absolutely critical. Even if we wanted to do branches, we couldn't. So we had to go out into the market. And believe me, we had one of the top systems, I'm not going to name them, that we've had for the past 7-8 years, and it was not doing the trick. Our branches, with only 3, were consistently opening more membership than our online channel, which to me was very scary, because the only way we're going to be able to advance and grow is when our online channel exceeds, even if I had 20 branches, I still want to see our online channel getting new membership, new customer base as the primary means of growth. Now, I say that because Philip just mentioned SoFi and Chime and so forth. The whole next generation of banking consumers are going online, right?
Yeah.
It's not that branch. I always say that convenience is no longer a branch nearby. Convenience is access to your accounts when you want them, right? That's
Yeah.
convenient. And the next generation of consumers figure that out. And the fintechs are absolutely just dominating that next generation. If we're not careful, Sarah, man, our current clientele base is going to die off, and there's going to be nothing to replace it. So this is, to me, really critical, especially for the credit union industry, to be able to provide that level of seamless fintech type of solution in a digital channel, especially for new membership to be able to join.
Mm-hmm. 100% agree with that. Especially, I would think in the Austin area has got to be a lot more techy than many for sure. And so, Pierre, how did you decide? I guess you kind of already answered my next question, though. If maybe you can expand a little bit more on is how did you decide between branches versus digital account opening for your investment?
Obviously, the industry is giving us trends on what's happening, and I wasn't only looking at my current membership base, sir, because the worst thing we can do is survey our current members. They already love us. So you're going to fool yourself and lure you into believing a lie because they're saying, "Oh, you guys are great. You guys are great." Yeah, but you've been with me 20 years. Of course you'll. But it's everybody who's not doing business with me that's choosing other financial institutions. Those are the ones that I want them to see me as being great. And because I'm never going to put branches, they're not going to see my presence. I need to deliver a really cool experience through an online channel. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for fintech, seamless, sort of SoFi kind of make it simple. Don't make this complicated. And the big piece, so for every financial institution, is the amount of fraud that's taking place through online channels. It's a double-edged sword. I want to make it simple, but we've got so many fraudsters that I complicate it. And so the people that are real, 98, 99% of the people that really want to open an account, it's actually higher than that, they get penalized because of all of the handful of fraudsters.
Okay.
Right? So we need to sift through that and identify a solution that's going to cover both bases. And that's what I was looking for. The other piece that I think is incredibly important, remember, I said I'm a $220 million credit union. Scimitar is my mainframe, my host system. I need something that interfaces into that, but I need to be able to afford it, Sarah. I'm not a $1 billion guy. I can't pay crazy money. So I need a fintech with that level of technology that's not going to, empty my pockets out. And so you're asking for the world, right? Every financial institution is looking at what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Boom. We found it with Contribute.
Yeah.
So, immediately we began to see lift in our online channel. We hadn't seen it before. But once we deployed and we set up the systems, these guys have done a great job. Man, immediately my online channel and new membership exceeded my branches. I mean, within the first couple of months. And since then, it's continued to dominate and allowed me to grow at levels that I never thought possible without a branch structure. Even today, Sarah, the strategy for many of the regional and national and even local are putting more branches out. That's how they're putting branches in new markets. And if I could, I would too, but I can't.
Right.
So what's the next best option? And right now we're growing at better than our peers here locally in the market. So we're doing a really good job. And it didn't start until we partnered with Contribute and saw the enhancements that could be made.
Yeah, that really emphasizes that
Oh,
smaller credit unions are still relevant. You just got to make the decisions that you got to make to remain relevant.
Sarah, I tell everybody we're David, right? I'd rather be David than Goliath.
Yeah.
I just need 5 smooth stones, Sarah. 5 smooth
Okay.
stones, and Contribute's one of them.
Cool. Great analogy. Yeah. So Philip, are you seeing this trend among credit unions across the board where that you're working with?
Sarah, it's so interesting. If you look at, what Pierre said, there are a lot of things to unpack there. But the first thing is about his strategy and about, what they did to actually accomplish their strategy. So we see this across the board, but the key component, I think, is almost a growth mentality. So it doesn't matter how big the credit union is, whether it's small or whether it's large. If you have a focus on growth, then we can actually help you. And
Right.
that's what, you look at Pure, the strategy is geared towards growth, the technology choices are geared towards growth, the personnel, all their, tactics are all geared towards growth. And I think that's the key thing. We could be an enabler, but that's what's, needed. And we see that, across the board, regardless of the size.
Right. It's not the tools, it's the strategy, and then you bring the tools in to accomplish that.
Yeah.
And so I was going to ask you too, Pierre, how did you decide to go with co-tribute? What were your like couple of points that really made them stand out for you?
Well, obviously the system that we had that was very popular and credit unions across the country had this one wasn't cutting the mustard. And so I looked at some other solutions, but they were outside of my price range. I had to find
Mm,
something that was going to work. They would build an interface into our host system and be seamless in the process, make it easier for my employees. I don't want to spend the kind of time we're spending trying to shuffle through these applications. But to Philip's point, which I think is really critical, um, checking accounts are key for any financial institution. It comes with the relationship. And I guess we really shouldn't call them checking accounts. They're transaction accounts. That's why Venmo is so popular with the next generation. Venmo, Robinhood, they're all offering checking accounts now to their customer base, which already has the next generation. And they're not only checking accounts, but debit cards are being sent. They don't even need us anymore. They can
right.
bypass a traditional financial institution. I got to give them a reason to come with me. So that means that I needed to find a solution that was going to give that very simple process for someone to open an account with us, be able to mitigate the fraud and not bog down my employees. And
Mm,
that's what I was looking for. Then the interface into our host system, absolutely critical. And I can't, the worst thing I can do, Sarah, is grow and have to hire people at the rate of my growth. Then
mm,
I'm defeating the purpose. Scalability and efficiency are absolutely critical. So, what systems are going to make me scalable and efficient as I grow? And those are key points in identifying a solution in the market that's going to help me compete in the market
mhm,
that I'm in. Especially, I think that Austin's probably one of the most competitive markets in the nation.
mhm. I bet. Philip, do you have anything you want to add to that? As far as like maybe feature functions, a couple top ones that might be different from what others are offering, as well as how it fits into their strategy?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that, Pierre touched on, Sarah. One is it's product innovation, right? Product innovation on the financial products. A checking account is not the same as other checking accounts, and I think, they've done a lot of innovation there. The second thing that he touched on, we talk a lot about the member experience, the prospective member experience, and that's key. Being able to support a ton of different products, start on mobile, finish at a branch, or start at the branch, finish on desktop, whatever it is, all of that. But then the ability for you to be able to make changes to the flows based on the product, I think that's key. So I think one of the key areas where Pierce team have really innovated is, different kinds of flows based on different products. So the ability to do almost no code or low code configuration is important, but also have the ability to have a developer portal where you could customize it to your heart content. That's also important. So you look at the member experience and how can you make it simple. The second piece that Pierre touched on was the employee experience, right? If you have a large volume coming in through digital, you want to be able to provide the tools to your employees, the credit union employees, where 85% of it is taking care of the system, right? And it's putting it into an approved bucket or a deny bucket with the appropriate adverse actions or a review bucket. But you want to give them tools. I think that's the key thing in Pierre's case is, they've reduced by 70% the amount of time that's required by employees to be able to do things in the back end. Right. On the other side, you look at the growth that they have, the digital's become the number one channel within the first 90 days. So you look
Mm,
at the growth and then you also look at the effort that, the employees, don't have to do. then that's a
Mhm.
winning combination. That's why, we're so excited about Pierre and his team and what they're doing. It's because of that combination, growth and operational efficiency.
Right.
Yeah.
So critical. And just on that point, to give some of the listeners an idea of what that looks like. From the product side, as Philip was saying, we probably have one of the best checking accounts in the state, from my view. 6% checking up to 15,000, 4% on a savings account up to 100,000, buy now, pay later, tied into the debit card. And then, of course, the fractional self-directed investing that's actually within the app and all tied into one. All obviously with the credit scoring, free credit scoring. I mean, it's sweet package, right?
Hmm.
Now, think about this, Sarah. How difficult would it be to have such a wonderful product and unable to deliver it through these digital channels?
Oh, I'm
That's
easily
that's the
frustrated.
problem. That's a problem
Yes.
that we had. We knew we had a good product and we had worked hard on it, but we couldn't deliver it through the digital channels because they were too clunky.
Hmm.
And once we found a solution through Contribute, man, the consumers are just eating this up because it is a very good product. We've worked on it for years, but without the right technology, I don't care how good it is, and they're not going to be able to access it. So now word of mouth and the marketing that we're doing, and they're finding it, and man, it's just opening. They're saying, "I never knew this." Give you an example. The way they set up their program is their workflows for every type of account. So we go from these really high income kind of 4% on savings, 6% to checking, all the way down to foster kids that are under the foster program and opening an account at the credit union to teach them about financial institutions. Each of these are set up on separate workflows. Contribute is able to set up a workflow so that we can go way up here, or we can get foster kids in foster care and set up a workflow for them to be able to open an account with us with all the protections associated with it. And our process internally is seamless. So think about the breadth of difference between what I'm talking about and these foster kids that are 14, 15, and 16 years old. They can quickly open an account and we can vet them out through the same workflow. And it doesn't matter whether they go online or they walk into a branch, it's the same process. Man, it's brilliant.
Hmm. And you're making them members for life because, I mean, first of all, helping out, I never even thought about that, foster kids. You don't have parents to co-sign or anything like that.
Exactly, Sarah. So you can
Yeah.
imagine how complicated to open those, but by setting up in the workflows that a Contribute has developed, man, it made what would normally be a very complicated process for our employees to try to figure this out. And now it streamlines them and walks them through the process. And we have all these checks and balances to make sure everything's set up and part of the process. I mean, phenomenal, right? It's
Yeah.
all the pieces that have to come together.
And can you talk, you touched on some of the data as far as the results, as more memberships coming in through the digital account opening versus the branches. But can you put any other numbers to some of the successful results you've had?
Well, liquidity deposits are up, new membership is up. 60 to 70% of our new members are now coming through online channels. That was never the case. It
Mm,
was always so the numbers are pretty phenomenal at this point. And so we're growing at paces that we have not been before. But part of our strategy, as Philip was saying, we want to double our size in the next 5 years. So we've got a really strong growth strategy in place. And we found that it's just not the products and not just the process, but the technology all have to fit nicely in order for us to have some of the success that we're seeing at this point. So yeah, all critical steps. But
mhm,
right now, we're looking at some of our peers in the local market, and they're actually losing market share and losing membership and losing deposits.
mhm,
And while we're in the middle of this growing, so
mhm.
something is moving in the right direction, and it's all the pieces working together as a strategic, focused initiative for growth.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And Philip, are you seeing like what are some of the results your clients are seeing? Can you aggregate or provide samples, something like that?
Yeah, it's hard to aggregate just because, some are really large clients there and some are smaller. But I think on the average, they're all outperforming the average. So if you look at credit union growth on the average, they say it's about 2.3, and some are actually losing market share. But
Right.
ours are typically north of 5%, and this is just organic growth, right? Not through mergers or acquisitions. So and that's what we've seen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
such a good point, Philip. I think it's important, Sarah, to know that we don't do indirect the way most credit unions
Mm-hmm.
do. Everything we're doing is organic. So the growth
Yeah.
that you're seeing is not just these people financing a car through a dealership. We don't play that, and everything organic. So that makes our numbers even more impressive, to be
Oh,
honest with
absolutely.
you, because many times many credit unions see their growth coming 30, 40% from the indirect market.
Oh, yeah.
That's not our numbers.
That's a danger. Honestly, I mean, it seems like a decent tool for certain things as far as indirect, but it's also a dangerous game to play too. So anyway, we're finding out the current economy, but I'm going to wrap this up here, gentlemen. I always offer my guests the final thoughts to share with our credit union audience. I'm going to start with you, Philip. You give your final thoughts, and then we'll go to Pierre.
It's interesting, Sarah, on the one hand, there's a lot of questions about, how is credit unions going to, compete in this space. But on the other hand, I feel, the opportunity couldn't be greater, right?
Mhm.
Because, you have credit unions who use the right technology, they could just compete really, really well with the digital first banks because they also have the trust component that a lot of the digital first banks, may not have yet, right? So that's why I look at even, somebody like Pierre, they're going after the younger population and they're hitting it out of the park because they've got the right products, the right messaging, the right way to engage with them, with convenience, and all of that is great. The other thing is, you hear so much about AI, and it's such an overused expression. But I think, we're pretty excited, Pierre and our team, we're actually working on it right now and implementing it for them. But there's some really good opportunities to use AI appropriately on the acquisition side, on the member acquisition side. Cornerstone just did an amazing report, Ron Shevlin did, about how you could take your existing products, but how do you find the new segments, the new markets for your existing products, right? So that's one where we think, our AI agents can, help, very, very well. So we're super excited about what Pierce's team is doing with that. And we're all in and we want to see how they could hit that, doubling their growth goal in a much shorter time frame. We're committed to that.
Yeah, nice. And for you, close us out.
I'm sorry?
I would say close us out. What are
What's
your
that?
final
Well, Sarah, I was mentioning it to people when I talk about the financial industry. I've been in this game for many years, longer than I'd care to admit. And it's never been as competitive and as difficult as it is today. There are players in this space that never existed before, Sarah. And us looking backwards at how we did things is the worst thing we can do,
Right.
especially as a credit union. If credit unions, which I believe they are, highly focused on looking after the best interest of the consumer, which is what they do. The consumers haven't figured that out because we continue to see the industry shrinking.
Yep.
Even the larger ones are having trouble growing, right? That's why you see so many mergers. We're down to 4,500 credit unions, if I'm not mistaken. I remember there were 9,000 of them.
Yep.
So there's got to be a change. We've got to be able to compete regardless of our size. To be honest with you, I think the smaller you are, the faster you can move, a little more agile. You find best of breed. Some of these leaders that are in the market, partner up with them and allow them to bring their knowledge, their technology, their expertise into your organization and use that as a springboard to get to the next level. But economies of scale is key. You got to grow or you're going to die. You cannot
Yeah.
afford to compete without growth. You got to have economies of scale. Revenue streams have to be built off that growth. And if you're not in that place, and many financial institutions are just treading water, they're keeping their capital position up, but they're not growing. They're actually shrinking membership, but their numbers look good. And so they get a pat on the head by the board saying, hey, look at you, look at your numbers. Yeah, but everything else is terrible. You got technology that's 10 years old and you haven't spent any money on it because you kept your expenses down. That's not going to help the industry. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, man, there's
Totally.
got to be some changes there.
Yeah, totally, totally.